Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rants alongside TK, Tommy Chrysan. TK coming from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood, the best tailgating spot to get all your supplies in Baton Rouge. I'm coming to an undisclosed location presented by Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, and we're presented by LeBear's Casino. The Barstool Sportsbook has been busy all week. Folks getting their bets in. For really the first full week of college football of last night, there were games, the big one being Utah and Florida. The sports book was packed over at LeBear's, folks watching the game, eating and drinking. And a reminder, tomorrow on Sports Shorts Radio, presented by LeBear's, we will be on location at Calandro's Supermarket on Government Street, right in the heart of Mid-City from 10 until noon. So come on by and see us and get all your tailgate supplies, your beer, wine, liquor, whatever you didn't get at Tremonti's today, you get at Calandro's tomorrow. All right, so Utah, who was 14th ranked in one poll, Florida unranked. We knew this wasn't going to be the best Florida team, but there was a little bit of where we weren't sure what we were going to get out of the Florida Gators and Billy Napier in season number 2. What we saw in Florida's first road game, a non-conference since 1991 outside the state of Florida, was an offense that looked atrocious. Florida loses. They only put 11 points on the board. They lose 24-11. You could even say it wasn't even that close.
No, Utah was clearly the better team. They were at home. They wanted a little payback from losing last year to the Gators, and they went after Billy Napier all over social media, calling him Sunbelt Billy and everything else. I mean, it was all over, and Florida just really looked bad. Now, of course, Utah is a better football team than Florida, and Utah helped make them look bad, but just some of the plays, and I mean, big 3rd and 10 guy gets sacked. I mean, 4th and 3, they went for it. The running back stuffed in the backfield. I mean, it just was not a good night for Florida, and Utah had a lot to do with that. Utah was ranked 14th, like you said. Florida wasn't ranked, so Utah sent a little message. They're the reigning Pac-12 champs. I mean, went to the Rose Bowl. So, that coach Willingham, he's done a great job with that program for many years.
It's unbelievable how irony things work out, right? But Billy Napier was a guy that LSU fans, a big section of folks from Louisiana, because of what he did, the good things he did with the Raging Cajuns, wanted him to be considered for the LSU job. He was not. He never even got a phone call from LSU. Fans might have considered him, but LSU did not. Instead, they go get Brian Kelly, who, half the crowd was not super enamored with, even though he had tons of skins on the wall at Notre Dame. And instead, it looks a year later that the Brian Kelly hire was the much better pick.
Not even close. I mean, that sentiment thing. You just got to defer to Scott Woodward. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and they didn't contact Napier. That's Woodward's decision. Now, Brian Kelly was struggling, and Florida was ranked 5th in the country, like LSU is. That'd be a different conversation. But I think LSU fans are happy with Brian Kelly, and Florida fans, they're already chomping at the bit, as they like to do the Gator chomp thing. That aggravates so many people. It's funny, but all SEC teams are in play this weekend. Florida lost last night. Missouri actually won against an FCS opponent, and the rest of them will play between now and Sunday night. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, people get upset. I mean, LSU fans, whoever get upset at the Florida chomp. I mean, everybody's got their thing, right? I mean, LSU's got Tiger Bait. If you go to anything and the fans are yelling Tiger Bait, hey, let them have their chomp. Just like let Tennessee have Rocky Top. I mean, like let's relax, people. Everybody's got their corny little thing. A&M's got its, guns up and all that stuff and whatever they do. All right, so last night also was a big game. Minnesota had a giant crowd taking on Nebraska. How the mighty have fallen. I mean, this is, you and I still hold grand the Nebraska brand because of what Tom Osborne did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But that Nebraska brand is dead. Outside of putting 92,000 in there for volleyball and setting a world record for female attendance the other night, Nebraska football, I mean, the days of them going to Minnesota and having no offense and getting beat. I mean, it's almost blasphemy. It's hard to even watch because I'm 51 and I think of Nebraska from my childhood and then the dominance of the 90s and everything. This is not your daddy's Cornhuskers anymore.
You know, Ronnie, back in the day when we could only watch a couple of college football games every week. I mean, that Nebraska-Oklahoma game, usually on Thanksgiving night or that Friday or that week was just, I mean, you didn't know anybody. Well, I did know a guy that played for Oklahoma from New Orleans, but you didn't know anybody. And back then there was no internet, you know, but you couldn't wait to watch that game. Nebraska, even into the 90s with Tom Osborne, they were still a formidable team. And, you know, lost to Florida in the national championship game. So, I mean, but you're right. I mean, volleyball's the program. It's a volleyball school now, Ronnie. I mean, it's not football up there in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I know that some of the old timers, those Cornhusker faithful, they got to be just cringing every day.
Yeah, I went to 2 of the national championship games that Nebraska played in the 90s. One, they smoked Florida. Well, yeah, they smoked Florida in Tempe. That was in the January 1995. They crushed the Florida Gators over in Tempe. I was also there when they lost to Charlie Ward in Florida State when Bowden got his first at the Orange Bowl, which was January 1st, 1994. Yeah, I mean, I did know a guy, Jason Wiltz. He went to St. Aug. He was a defensive lineman. He played at Nebraska his whole career in the mid-90s. Ended up playing a couple of seasons with the Jets, like 2 years, I think, with the Jets organization. His brother, Stanley Wiltz, was one of my good friends growing up. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, Tom Osborne was a mythical figure.
Ronnie, I could take it even more recent than that. My nephew was a running back at McNeese, and they played at Nebraska. And this was when Nebraska was still in the heyday. And he talked about how, you know, the place was packed. And like LSU baseball fans, the Nebraska football fans were very kind. And, you know, when a McNeese player made a nice play, they would applause, you know, a minor applause. And, you know, actually Nebraska scored late to win that game. McNeese almost got them that night in Lincoln or that day. And but I remember my nephew telling me, man, you know, that place, that's football. That's what he kept saying. That's football, you know, because that's when, but that was on the tail end of their heyday. And, you know, but you're right. It's a volleyball school now. We'll go with that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Minnesota knocks off Nebraska in the conference game right there. Let's see. What else? Oh, outside of LSU and Florida State, which LSU now is a 2-point favorite. It started out as 2.5, some maybe 3. Now it's LSU's only a 2-point favorite. I'll get to that in a minute with you. But outside of that game this weekend, there's 2 games I'm interested in. One, I want to see Colorado take on TCU, a top 20 TCU team on the road in Dallas. Buffalo's around a 30-point favorite. I mean, a dog, 30-point dog. Just want to see the Deion Sanders Buffaloes and what that looks like. But also Tulane at home against South Alabama. South Alabama is a team, to me, that flies under the radar a little bit. They're tougher than they seem a lot of times. They're a 6.5-point dog to Tulane. I know you love the Green Wave this season. I'm assuming you love them this week. But there's a little storyline, a little extra oomph to this game this weekend.
Well, of course, South Alabama, that school's in Mobile, Alabama. And Mobile is technically the home of Mardi Gras. It was there before it was ever in New Orleans. But, of course, New Orleans magnified it a million times, and Mobile still has it. They throw moon pies, but that's about it. Well, on the back of the helmets, you know, you got all these messages now in the NFL and the college. They're going to come into Yulman Stadium on the campus of Tulane, and it's going to say home of Mardi Gras on the back of their helmets, you know, giving the shout out for the city of Mobile. Now, you know, New Orleans, the Tulane team doesn't have, if it had 80% of the roster from New Orleans, that might be a motivational thing. But this guy's playing for Tulane that probably hadn't been to a parade yet, you know. So, but still, the whole idea that they're going to come in with home of Mardi Gras into Tulane, it's we'll see how it goes. Let's just let it play out. Yeah,
that's a Chris Dupree, Mike email level troll right there by South Alabama to come into New Orleans and say they're the Mardi Gras. So Well, we'll see. I guess whoever wins gets to really hold that claim for another year. All right, so Tulane 6.5-point favorite. Where you laying your money this weekend?
I bet the Green Wave 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
I've got that much confidence. The line's been riding at 6.5. South Alabama's a good team, but Tulane and their quarterback. It's all about the quarterback in college football. Michael Pratt is a very good one. He's the first or second round draft choice in the draft next spring. And Tulane and Willie Fritz, they have recruited better. They've got more depth and more talent than they had even last year when they won their conference and won the Cotton Bowl. So Tulane's riding high, and I think the home game, hopefully there's a big crowd. I
Well,
really, really like Tulane Saturday big.
yeah, I mean, if it's not a sellout, shame on the city. The Tulane fans. I mean, you only got to do about 25 to 30,000 people in that stadium anyway to sell it out. And South Alabama is going to bring a good crowd. Their first game of the year. They're only 3 hours away. It should be packed, and then it's a warm up if they take care of business for the Ole Miss game. Tulane's going to have at home. Big news today, this morning, out of this continued mergers and consolidation and weaning of schools, and everybody kind of going to their corners, their Power Five conferences. But finally, it looked like it wasn't going to happen, but it did happen. Cooler heads prevailed. Cal, Stanford, and SMU now joining the ACC. Don't call it the Atlantic Coast Conference anymore. Just call it the ACC.
Yeah, you're really doing. They now have 18 teams. Now, keep in mind, Notre Dame is in the ACC for all sports except football. So there's 18 schools in the ACC now. Yeah, Atlantic Pacific. So anyway, so that's been done. That'll go into effect next July 1, like the Oklahoma, Texas move to the SEC and the move to the Big Ten by USC and Southern Cal. So and UCLA. So I mean. It's the world we live in. You got to make the adjustment, and those schools have done it. It's follow the money. The ACC gets the Dallas market with SMU. That's big television wise, and the West Coast market, the Bay Area of Cal and Stanford. And Ronnie, as you and I were talking, I don't know the details, but the agreement is they take less money from the conference cut of the pie and the revenue for a predetermined amount of time before they get a full share. And I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure that'll come out over the weekend or early next week. But there you go, the ever-changing world of college sports.
Yeah, you're kind of, and those three are the redheaded stepchild of that conference for the first few years till they get the full share. It's sort of like, paying your dues. It's the safety in numbers, the safety of having a conference for the long term of your school and the success versus the short term gain. They are looking at it from a standpoint of, hey, you got to pick a team. You got to be on a team. It's kind of like going to jail, Tommy. I don't know if you've ever been to jail, but if you go to jail, you got to join a gang, whether you want to or not, for safety purposes.
Well, Riley, have you been to jail?
Have not, but I know people.
I have not either.
And the bottom line is you got to pick a team. You got to go. You got to join a side, whether you want to or not. And that's kind of where they are. There's no chance that they wanted to join the ACC. They know it's stupid. They know it doesn't make any sense for Cal and Stanford to be playing University of Miami and basketball and baseball and track and field and all that. But they needed that safety. They needed that money. They needed that guarantee over the long haul while the world is still figuring out itself. And I know you and I both are in the same agreement that one day, and I would think sooner than later, but who the hell knows, one day it's going to be football conferences, and then there's going to be everything else. And then everything else can make more sense and be more regionalized, relative to where schools are and all that. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Nobody cared that Cal didn't join the conference because of any other sport other than football. And let's extract football from this whole equation, because football is the biggest beast in the room. It affects everything and throws off the balance of the world. Just pull the football out, and then everybody else almost manage the other sports as if it's a separate entity and a separate business.
I'll tell you where we're going, Ronnie. You're going to think of the NFL model, 32 teams, 8 divisions of 4 teams. You're going to get two 32-team college divisions, okay? You're going to have whatever you're going to call it. You're going to have one division, 32 teams, one conference with 32 teams, and then they'll have a playoff with 12 teams in it, or maybe more by the time we get to that. And then all the other sports are going to go back to a geographical map. Okay, like almost turning the hands of time backwards, and have the Southeastern Conference have the old Pac-12, and those schools play all the other sports, and football will separate. Now, football tried to separate back in the 90s. The CFA, the College Football Association, had their own TV contract, I want to say, with CBS for a little while, and that's where that was headed. But then that's before the money really got big. It was big back then, but now it's huge. So, and it didn't make it. And the university president shot it down eventually. That won't happen the next time they try to separate.
All right, a couple things. Brian Kelly had his radio show last night, the first one of the year at TJ Ribs. And Brian Kelly said at the radio show that they were going to beat their ass, talking about Florida State. Now, that's pretty interesting that Brian Kelly, this CEO type figure, would give that bulletin board material to Florida State, but I guess he felt like it's better for him to fire up the LSU fans than it is to worry about pissing off Florida State.
Yep. Hey, Brian Kelly, I can guarantee everything he does is calculated. He's got a reason for it. Might not tell you the reason, might not share that, but it's calculated. All the elite coaches do that. He did that for a purpose, for the betterment of his team. He ain't worried about Florida State. He's worried about his team and them playing football Sunday night.
The line going down, I mean, people just thought to dig in and look back at what happened last year. What do you think it is?
I don't know. I mean, a half a point, when you're under 3, line movement doesn't mean a whole lot. So it was 2.5 and it goes to 2. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people buy a half point either way, especially the hot numbers of 3 and 7. People like to buy half a points, on top and below when it's the lines in that category. I don't think that line matters. I think LSU wins by 2 touchdowns. But anyway, I don't know why it moved. Just maybe there's, a lot of play on Florida State, and they wanted to try to see if more people jump back LSU. But, the myth is, people think in Las Vegas they want the same amount of money on both schools, and then they want the juice. Well, no, they want to win big money, and they want to win big money. So that's why upsets, they make a fortune, and we see all those numbers. But I don't know why it moved, to answer your question.
Speaking of players who may move, Mike Evans, the star receiver for the Tampa Bay Bucks, who's been, has had his great moments, and then the Saints have shut him down also at times. Mike Evans, who's one of the few weapons that the Tampa Bay Bucks have on offense, not in camp, and said, hey, got till the weekend or I'm going to be elsewhere in 2024.
Yep. It's a business, and we see that business side with the Evans thing. And, it's important because the Saints are in that division. They got to play the Bucks twice a year. We all know that. So we'll see.
I love teams in the conference having problems internally. None bigger than the Falcons. Everybody loves seeing the.
You're about to get a comment from Todd McClure. He's been chiming in, so he's getting ready to get. See, look, Todd's even got his Falcons logo. Look, can you see the screen, Ronnie?
Oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah, he's pumping up Gordy Rush or something. I don't know.
He's got that. Todd's got a big podcast thing that he's been building a set.
Saw that. I saw some of it.
Yeah.
Snap back with T-Mac.
Yeah, just do it like us. Just take it on the road. We don't need the big set and all the expensive equipment. Then it breaks, and who fixes it and all that stuff. But that's for Todd to worry about. But we appreciate him joining us today. Lastly, before we go, Ronald Acuna Jr., right, who's Casey McKenzie's favorite player. Guy has 60 stolen bases this year and 30 homers. Remember Jose Canseco, who I happened to meet last week, got a signed jersey, all that stuff. He was the founder of the 40-40 club, 40 homers, 40 stolen bases. Ronald Acuna Jr., not quite there yet at the 40 homer mark. Don't count him out. But 60 bags, 30 homers, and on top of that, got married. Now, people say, well, why did he get married? He had to get married. He's been dating this girl for a few years. They got a couple of little small kids. and they got married. He's not, obviously, neither one are United States citizens. And so she was only allowed to be able to be here with the kids 3 months at a time. And her visa was about to be up, and then it was going to be another bunch of months before they come back. He said, forget all that noise. And they went and got married. But so on this day that he got married, he hits a grand slam to beat the Dodgers, hits the home run number, 30 or whatever. And he's a part of the 60-30 club. We knew he was great, but Tommy, he is not slowing down. He is on his way to a Hall of Fame. And that's weird to say at such a young age.
Yeah, he's definitely trending in that direction. I mean, my favorite Braves player is Austin Riley, the third baseman, who was a Mississippi State commit but never went to college. That dude's a ball player, man. If I'm on a team, I want Riley on my team. I mean, not only is he great at third, but he can hit like crazy, and he's a big dude, and he's trending towards a Hall of Fame. A lot of ground to cover, but he's trending in that direction too.
All right, TK, before we get out of here, tell us about Tremonti's.
Well, you can load up for the weekend. You need party stuff. You need tailgate party packages, platters, sandwiches, fish, shrimp, chicken, ribeye rolls, through the roof, shrimp rolls. They got it all. You just come in at Tremonti's. Now, they won't be open Sunday. They never are. So you want to get your stuff today or tomorrow. Everything you need to drink, from the wine to the whiskey to the vodka, got beer, everything at Tremonti's Meat and Seafood, Jefferson Highway, right down the street from Parkview Baptist Church and School. You need to stop by. When you walk in here, you'll be amazed at all the things they got. You pick up a box of hamburgers to throw on the grill, 20 different flavors of sausage here at Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. So do check it out.
All right, we'll be over at Calandra Supermarket in Mid-City, right in the heart of downtown Baton Rouge, doing Sports Church Radio tomorrow on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. You can download the app and listen anywhere in the world. We'll be on from 10 until noon. Have a great one, everybody. You've been watching Sports Shorts, presented by LeBears Casino.